against Wisniewski, and Ramos drives that one to deep right field. And just like that, this game is tied. Heliot Ramos does it again. Into the bleachers, it's 2-2.
It takes an elite talent.
Now, back to Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.
You know, a text just came in, Dibs, that maybe has my head thinking about some things in terms of why the Ramos stuff sounds like it does and the Matos stuff sounds like it does. And for those of you who don't know exactly what I mean by that, I personally find the Heliot Ramos fervor, the Vamos Ramos, to be quieter than it should be. I feel that way. And I feel like the Matos stuff right now is probably still a little bit louder than it should be while I understand it. Matos came up and did some really good things, was National League Player of the Week, and I think this is a huge credit to Luis Matos, by the way, because if he was, as reports suggested, crushed by being sent down, boy, is he reacting the right way. Go take a gander at what Luis Matos has done in Sacramento since he went back down. He is killing it. Absolutely killing it. But listen to this text, 415, and thank you for listening and texting in. If Jung-Hoo Lee didn't get hurt, Ramos would still be in the minors until he was 34 years old.
Wow. Time
to fire the Giants' board of experts. All right, let's play with that for a second. Is in some way your excitement about Heliot Ramos dampened because of how he got here? In other words, he wouldn't have even been here unless things didn't break a certain way. I'm sort of like, but he's here.
Right.
But he's here. So does it matter more about how it happened or just that it happened?
To me, it just matters that it happened. And if you want to hold it against Farhan Zaidi and you want to say that he wouldn't have been here till he's 34, feels a little aggressive to me. He's not even 25 yet. So you're saying 9 more years of minor league baseball. And I know that it was a bit sarcastic and a bit of an exaggeration, which is fine. But I don't know. Depends on how you want to look at things. And I look at the TJD experience this year and how he became a real factor with the Golden State Warriors. And Jonathan Kuminga erupted this year when Draymond Green got suspended. Draymond was out for a month, and Jonathan Kuminga became a starter, and that's when he really made that third-year leap. So do you look at Mike Dunleavy Jr. and Steve Kerr and say, well, you don't get credit for that because it only happened because you had no choice?
Well, it's funny.
I don't look at it that way.
Yeah, it's funny that the text says, if Lee didn't get hurt, let's use that sentence. If Lee didn't get hurt, Draymond Green wouldn't exist.
Right.
His career would not exist.
David Lee, not Jung-Hoo Lee.
Correct.
Right.
If David Lee doesn't get hurt, does Draymond Green even happen? Does he become a future Hall of Famer?
You would figure eventually it happens, but maybe not.
I mean,
right?
Gosh, if Drew Bledsoe doesn't get hurt, we could do that. We can play
this game all day.
All day long.
Yep.
I am much more interested in the fact that it is happening. But I guess my larger point in seeing a text like that is it does feel for many Giants fans like all roads lead to Farhan ferocity. Let's call it that. All roads. One way or another, you're going to watch a Giants game and find a reason to be mad at Farhan. I get it. You don't need to be in on Farhan. But when the Giants go to Wrigley Field and Heliot Ramos takes his show on the road, and he again comes up with another multi-hit game, and I'll make this point again. Do you notice the difference between Ramos's home runs and Soler's home runs? Do you notice the difference? Soler's come when somebody is up or down by 4 runs or more.
And no one's on base.
Until this weekend.
Right.
But even then, it was after the Giants had already built a strong lead. Not that I'm saying I'll take it. That's great. Glad you hit one out, 3-run homer. But Ramos's home runs seem to be to either tie or untie the game literally almost every time. Did it again last night. Oppo Taco, late innings to tie it at 2. Dude, over the weekend, following a frustrating Friday night loss, walk up, first inning. Slater gets a base hit, boom, gone, 2-0 Giants lead. And I know they went on to lose. That's not even the point. This guy, for the last 6 or 7 weeks, has been a legitimate Major League Baseball star.
Yeah.
Not good, star.
He's had multi-hit games in 4 consecutive, and if you look at all 36 games he's played this year, he's had 2 or more hits in almost half of them. 17 of the 36, he's had multiple hits, and his OPS is hovering near 1,000, yet it is interesting what you're talking about as far as the excitement level goes, because it still feels like there is as much buzz about bring back Matos as there is about look at Ramos and what he's done. And I do think part of it, Mark, comes down to confirmation bias, which is not recency bias, but the confirmation bias is you want to have the information that you glean confirm what you already believe. And that's what it comes to with Farhan Zaidi. And the people who are looking at it and saying, well, Farhan doesn't get credit because the only reason why Farhan is, having the benefit of Heliot Ramos is the fact that he had no choice. And therefore, people want to confirm their own bias against Farhan by looking at it through that lens.
Look, the history of this is actually clear with Heliot Ramos. He was drafted 7 years ago by Bobby Evans as a first-round draft pick. There was a ton of excitement. If you want to go back 5 years, Ramos was the number 1 prospect, at least fielding, in the field prospect in the Giants organization. Then they go through COVID, take minor league baseball off for a little while. And when he came back, he struggled for a little bit. Luciano jumped him. Matos jumped him on the prospect rankings. And the Giants organization, for a short period of time, I do believe, built doubts about Ramos. They were kind of, quote unquote, down on him. I absolutely believe that's a thing. But they didn't give up on him. And he did come up last year, little cups of coffee here and there. He never stuck. And then this year, he did what all organizations want you to do, which is force your way up. And I know people will say, well, no, it was because of injury. But when your OPS over an entire year in the minor leagues is over 950, look, you're going to find your way up. And now he's earned staying up. And now I don't think there's any way in hell he gets sent down, no matter what happens next. But at 6:52 last night, okay, we're somewhere in the 6th inning, maybe 7th inning. Yep. Things are getting wobbly in the game. Good buddy of mine who's a huge Giants fan sends me a text. This is the first text. And I had walked away from the game for a few minutes. I don't know if I was cooking dinner or whatever the hell.
You'd gotten home already, though, I'm sure.
Absolutely. The one text is this, with 5 question marks next to it. Where the hell is Matos? And I started by just sending back like the sarcastic text, crushing it in Sacramento.
He is.
And the text comes back, of course, probably wanting a trade. So then I finally was like, hey, I was away for a bit. Why did you ask? Like, why is your mind on Matos? Giants are locked up in a close one at Wrigley Field late in the game. Why are you asking me about Matos? He says, well, we're leaving runners on base all night. And just to be clear, Brooks over Matos. Brilliant.
Wow.
And then Ramos is literally carrying us. And then our conversation moved over to Heliot Ramos. But you see where it started?
Can Matos play first base?
No. Trenton Brooks is not a big leaguer yet.
No.
And I want to make sure I clearly use the word yet.
Well,
because I'm not going to kill his career. I have no idea where it's going next. I'm not going to say Marco Luciano's not a big leaguer. He's not right now.
Trenton Brooks will be 29 the day before July 4th.
Yeah, but so is Bivens. Like, I don't know what. Maybe
you never know.
Maybe he's going to go to the internet and learn how to catch a pop. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to do that to a guy's career. But Trenton Brooks is not here because the Giants want him here. He's here because Lamont Wade and a hammy. That's why he's here. Now, can we get upset that the Giants don't have a better first base option behind Lamont Wade and Wilmer Flores than that? Sure. I think that's fair, actually. Like, how can you not have somebody who can play first base?
How can Yaz not be able to play first?
Well, I actually don't want him at first. He's brilliant in right field.
In a pinch. And he was, again, last night. Brilliant. He did it again. The route that he took, and it wasn't even a route, but the setup on the fly ball to catch it moving forward, in stride, pump the throw, perfect. And that thing wasn't even close at home plate with the double play. The only fear was that Bailey maybe was blocking home plate, and maybe it'd get overturned, but that is Yaz in a nutshell. I'm not saying I want him out of right, but if you need somebody to play first, a lefty, how can you not have another lefty in the organization?
I don't know.
Bro, what's Brandon Belt doing in Nacogdoches, Texas?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
I mean, I'd rather
count that.
Yeah.
Add that to the list.
I'd rather.
And that's a great question.
I mean, does Brandon Belt want to come on back for a minor league deal that he knows is going to be over as soon as LaWant Wade gets healthy? I doubt it. You know what I mean? So
Brandon Belt.
Yeah,
Thank you, Phil Bowe.
Wouldn't you rather have Brandon Belt come in for 3 weeks, though, than Trenton Brooks? Trenton Brooks is
I love Trenton Brooks. He's my guy.
No, there's too many at-bats right now in the Giants organization where somebody goes up in a big moment and starts waving at every single breaking ball that he's thrown. Brooks does it. Casey Schmidt did it, so they sent him down. Soler has had too much of that this year.
God.
Guys that are just up there absolutely waving at all the breaking balls. And what that signals, and look, Soler is just, and it looks like maybe he's coming out of it a little bit, but Soler,
you can do the Joe Namath if you want.
Struggled. He has struggled this year.
Struggling.
But he's a big leaguer. Like, he's got a resume.
Track record.
But when
World Series MVP for crying out
when
loud.
you call these guys up from the minors, and it seems like the rally always finds them. Bases loaded, 1 out, tie game, 7th inning, and they come in and they're just throwing their bat at everything. It kills you. It absolutely kills you. Sports has a way of finding your weak points, and the Giants have too many right now. You can blame injury, you can blame the Giants, you can do both. But that's just the reality of it right now. And I think George's answer to that was fair. I think you can have a healthy bit of both of those emotions. You absolutely can look at the Giants right now, and I think this is fair. Like, really? Your first baseman tweaks a hammy, and this is your next option? How? How is that your next option? A 29-year-old journeyman minor leaguer who's waving at curveballs. How can you do that? Now, I think you can also fairly respond to that if you're the Giants and be like, my God, Wisely could be at first, but he's at short because this injury, because that injury. I know Ahmed is back now, but they are completely decimated by injury, more so in the pitching staff than outside. But I think both of those emotions are totally fair. But anyway, I wonder why it seems, and granted, I use the example of my text thread with my friend.
Yeah.
That's one example. It's not the only one we have. We're here talking about this every day. We're on social media every day. I still see a lot of stuff about Luis Matos. That's fine. I don't see enough about Heliot Ramos. It is funny. He embodies exactly what we've been saying we want. And if it's just because the Giants aren't winning, I guess we'd be excited that they're 2 games under 500.
I do think that you're starting to see a little bit more of it. And the account SF Gigantes lifting your Vamos Ramos. And we saw NBC Sports Bay Area use it. The SF Giants are starting to use it. And I hope that you get the credit that you do deserve for that bit of absolute radio genius. You can play the humility card. I won't stand for it. And hopefully our T-shirts are being made as we speak with the Vamos Ramos. But you're starting to see now, maybe over the last 4 games, because he's got multi-hits in all 4. He's got 2, 3, 2, and 2. And he's gone from hot to scalding to like cooking with grease and the whole thing. So maybe now the Vamos Ramos campaign, the excitement for Heliot Ramos is starting to supersede what you're talking about, which is where is Matos? And I mean, forget Marco Luciano, who I believe is back on a rehab assignment. He's
back and optioned.
Right, but he's back
down.
Playing baseball again.
Yes, but
is the
down.
point. But as far as the buzzometer, it was Matos, a little brief cup of coffee for Luciano, and since then it's been all Ramos.
Yeah, as it should be. Yeah, right. Grandy, what's up?
So I'm thinking back to, you guys are talking about, a rookie coming up and playing well for an extended period. You talk about Casey Schmidt, you talk about Matos, you talk about even Patrick Bailey last year, and it wasn't necessarily a long stretch. This is the Heliot Ramos stretch is kind of extended now, and it makes you believe that it's real. So I'm thinking the last time there was a Giants youngster who came up and played this well for this long, and my mind immediately goes to Buster Posey all the way back in 2010. And obviously that team ended up winning the division and winning the World Series. We know that, but it's not like they were lighting the world on fire in the middle of the season. But I remember, I don't know what you guys remember, and I was only 14 years old
in
2010. But I remember, it was can't miss. I'm tuning in every single pitch. Buster Posey's going to win Rookie of the Year. He's going to be here forever. We're going to build the team around him. We trade away Benji Molina at the deadline because we're so sure that he's the guy. And to your point, I don't quite feel that same kind of energy around the Ramos hype just yet.
And those who would respond, well, that team won the division. They were not ticketed to win the division until they got into September.
And I'm looking at the game log, Posey's first month. I mean, they had a 5-7 game losing streak in here. They were not playing great baseball.
They were not doing great. The Padres gagged the division away in September.
Oh, boy.
Gagged it. And the Giants got hot late, and then they won the division, and then they won the whole banana. So those kinds of things happen, and that's why I don't get too hot and bothered about the standings on June 18th, because this stuff is all going to get decided much later in the year. But I do think it speaks to where a lot of Giants fans are. It's not all of them. I actually even get confused by it sometimes. We talk about the echo chamber here. I think that's part of it. We hear from the angry Giants fan, but the feel of the Giants fan base through social media, through sports radio, and just through the conversations you have with friends and family at the bar or in the living room is different than what happens when you go to the game. I went on Saturday. My God. Jammed. Jammed.
Yeah. Father's Day weekend.
Yes.
Beautiful weather.
And giveaways.
Sure.
There were giveaways both days. And the Angels are in town. Summer starts, beautiful weather, giveaways. I get it.
Yeah.
But it was like that all week. The midweek stuff against Houston earlier in the week. Not sellouts, but damn close.
People are into it.
Upper Deck got a workout this week. So I am struggling with the sound and reality and how it matches. I mean, we could even get into that a little bit. 888-957-9570. The negativity that you hear about Farhan Zaidi, about the state of the Giants organization on podcasts and radio and at the bar. Does it match reality? Or are we just kind of in this conversation, and meantime, 85% of the fan base is like, this is great. Honey, you want to get some tickets? Let's bebop over to the game. Is that closer to reality? I mean, I'm sure
I think we're heading back to that point.
There's plenty of both, I'm sure.
I think 85% is a little hot for me, but I do think that more of the, quote, casual fans are starting to realize not only is this team more exciting than they were before, but the young guys are starting to come up and produce, and this team is better. And it's hard when you just have a casual look from 10,000 feet and you see the record and you see Farhan Zaidi and you see, a bunch of guys who are hurt and a lot of unknown players. If you're not that dialed in, you don't know what Brett Wisely has been doing. And Brooks at first base, you've never heard of. And so when you just look at it from 10,000 feet, you think, okay, it's probably just another mediocre club. But when you watch it as closely as we do and many fans, you realize that there's a lot of excitement happening. And I do think that Heliot Ramos is a big part of that as far as, turning people back toward the product and realizing everybody wants what he's now giving them, which is play the young guys. And you want these young guys, the big three, of course, Matos, Ramos, and Luciano. You want to see all three. You want all three to be great. But right now it's Heliot Ramos who is here. And the Grandy comp to Buster Posey, I just looked at his month, his rookie year, not June, but July. Buster hit 418, OPS of 1165.
Good Lord.
7 homers, 24 driven in. Right now, Ramos has very similar numbers. The OPS is a little bit higher. He does have 7 home runs, a few less runs batted in, but Grandy had me thinking actually about what happened at that deadline. They made a trade. They traded a mainstay.
A beloved player.
Right.
Yeah.
So might you get to a spot where, you trade Michael Conforto ahead of the deadline?
Anything's possible.
That to me would be the comp, or Jorge Soler, but I don't know if you would do that.
No, and
with 2 more years left.
Well, but those guys they're not in Elliott's way. Elliott is now your center fielder,
But if you wanted to bring up Matos, that would free up a spot.
Yes. Yeah.
And you could put Ramos in left or put Matos in left.
They'd have to be very, very confident that Luis is ready to be consistent.
Right. Just Grandy had me thinking about what happened, and they traded Benji Molina, and we all were shocking.
Right. It was almost out of respect for Benji more than anything else, because it's like we're playing Buster.
Right.
You're not hurting us here. We'd love for you to show Buster how to be a big leaguer, but by the same token, you still have game left. You're Benji Molina. Let's send you somewhere else. Yeah. Turns out they sent him to the team that they were going to play in the World Series.
Which is wild. Yeah. Buster started 27 games in July.
Yeah.
Which is damn near every game.
You would never do that anymore as a catcher.
Right.
Ever. Patrick Bailey is 25 years old and they don't do that to him.
It just,
Well, his first month in the bigs, he basically was playing almost exclusively first base, which, thinking about it now, I almost entirely forgot. But the other thing about the 2010 team, it's a name we don't like to bring up, but Aubrey Huff was so good that year. You needed him to play first base.
He was fantastic. He was great in the World Series, too.
Buster had 3 starts in May to that point. So, he didn't even play a ton until he got to June.
Yard Doctor in Napa has called Willie and Dibby. Hi, Yard Doctor. What are you doing?
I'm just heading home, had some Mexican dinner. I wanted to tell you I'm so happy for the owners. They got a 1-team market now that the A's are gone. And the park is paid for. People are still selling it out. At the trade deadline, remember last year, they didn't spend a dime. We were in the race, and they didn't make a single move, as I recall. Is that what's going to happen this year?
I would doubt it, but, Yard Doctor, thanks. This is potentially the one thing, going back to the hot crossover conversation from last week. This is potentially the one thing that really does get affected by the extra wild card, which is that the trade deadline becomes more complicated in terms of what you can get done. I don't think it necessarily kills the trade deadline, but it's hard to get things done because there are so many teams that feel like they're still in it. So I don't know sometimes if a team doesn't do much at the deadline, is that because they don't want to? Or is that because the right deal doesn't present itself, or there's nobody out there selling? I don't know. But I do think that the Giants made a mistake last year by not doing more. I don't think that landed well in the clubhouse. And I think that I certainly hope if things sit as they are now, they're a lot more aggressive this time around.
And I think the Giants would see themselves as one of the halves in the wild card race. There are 9 teams within 3 games of each other. 9 teams for 2 spots, basically. You put Atlanta outside of the mix, although they could come back to the pack. But if you look at those 9 teams, the Giants would see themselves as one of the halves. And there are some clear have-nots in that group, in my opinion.
Heliot was on the station today.